The occult meaning of the X symbol is linked directly to a fallen angel named Osiris. The Masonic meaning of the X is simply this. It is the sign of Osiris, the great Egyptian sun god.
Oh, for real. We gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. Come on, X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you, X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. Come on, X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you, X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you, X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you.
Now, this place was called the Star of Egypt. It says right here, it's known as the Star of Egypt. So the center of the star of the crossing eclipses is known as the Star of Egypt. If it can't get any more clear than that, Carbondale, Illinois. Carbon is this is all about a ritual of marking people.
Some of those balloons will also carry samples of a highly resistant bacteria. The experiment aims to test the limits of living things on Earth. Eventually, the balloons will pop and devices will send the data and bacteria down to the ground.
A disturbing number of references to an occultation preceding an apocalypse.
We had an eclipse a few weeks ago.
No, I think this refers to something else, something that has not yet happened.
The last time that an eclipse crossed the contiguous United States was 99 years ago, in 1918, during the flu pandemic. Now, this isn't to create any type of fear. This is just to help you understand what all this means when you see it foreshadowed in these TV shows and films.
Face that this event must take place during an occultation.
We just had an eclipse. When's the next one? Yeah, I looked it up. For New York City, it's April 8th, 2024.
Start of game. What you heard is what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock. Open up the door. It's real. With the non-stop pop out and stainless steel.
Shout out to Perilous X Prep. Let's get into it. That was just the trailer. But let's not forget about DMX. DMX died, I think, the same day that Lil Nas X had his birthday. Lil Nas X born in 1999. 99, right? Earl Simmons, DMX's real name equals 99. Of course, 9 months and 9 days after that. Oh, hold on. Missed the whole part. Also on that day was Prince Philip's death at 99, on the 99th day of the year. 9 months and 9 days later, Betty White dies at 99 years old on New Year's Eve. I think that was 2021. 9 months and 9 days after that, Queen Queef a Lizard Bitch dies at 96, which is a 9 upside down, of course. Satanists invert everything, right? But that just keeps going and going, but I'll leave it there. Let's get into it. OSIRIS X Rising, the Great American Eclipse, and the Seal of Saturn. Symbology and what's ahead.
Symbols reveal and they conceal, and that's why they're used and that's why they're so important. They reveal to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and they conceal from those who do not have the eyes to see or ears to hear.
Do you feel it in the air? Everything is changing, a world wasted by fear.
To form for the first time in history a truly global society, a new world order. That's what this is about.
Are we at a special moment which is being redefined? Or are we creating a new world order?
We're at a moment when the international system is in a period of change like we haven't seen for several hundred years. There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't get it twisted. This rap is mine, mother. Start of game. What you heard is what you hearing.
The occult meaning of the X symbol, ladies and gentlemen, is linked directly to a fallen angel named Osiris. All gods, with the lowercase g, right? They are all real, and they are all fallen angels. Right? Greek gods, Native American spirits, Egyptian gods and goddesses, everything accepted in the New Age movement. Right? The very same entities that today we have come to call aliens. They are fallen angels. And they're kicked out of Dad's house, and they have followed their big brother Satan for time immemorial. Enter Hollywood, a breeding ground for witchcraft, Satanism, the occult, influencing this world against everything our Heavenly Father through Jesus Christ stands for, not to mention conditioning the world to accept the coming of the Antichrist. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Aleister Crowley will show his ugly black soul once again, because Hollywood and the music industry not only worships this man, but their entire business and practice revolves around Aleister Crowley's teachings. Right? And it blends in nicely with what is called OSIRIS Risen, the occultic meaning of the X symbol. You can read this at your leisure, right there in the middle. The Illuminist Masonic meaning of the X is simply this. It is the sign of Osiris, the great Egyptian sun god. The Egyptian connection. Check this out. In ancient Egypt, the mark of X and the symbol of crossbones, right, in the symbol of an X, was very prominent in religious context. You can find the X on the walls of a number of ancient Egyptian temples and pyramids. It is the sign of Osiris, right? The great sun god. This guy has quite a resume. The god of fertility, agriculture, the afterlife, the dead, resurrection, life itself apparently, and vegetation. He's quite something.
Now if we look here, look at this, we'll see that the X, which is used as the most primary letter for Saturn because it represents a couple different things. It's the unknown. It's the most used letter for Saturn. If we take the X apart, if you looked at figure 2, it's just two triangles. Now, if we overlap them instead of connecting them again at the main point, you get the seal of Saturn. That's in figure 3. Now, if we slide them far enough down and we connect from the right to the left on the bottom and the top, now you get the creation of the Star of David. But David didn't have a star. David did not have a star. It's a little ploy they like to use so that you just go, oh, well, that's a religious object. No, that's the seal of Solomon. If you notice on the inside of that, there is a cube or a hexagon, and you will find that on the North Pole of Saturn. This is the North Pole of Saturn. If you'll notice, you see a hexagon. But a hexagon, like I told you, is just a two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional cube. You'll notice that there's a blue circle around it. These colors are red and blue. You'll see this on TV all the time in the background. Let's watch and see how the hexagon turns into a cube I filled it in for you. You'll see it. Watch. It'll start filling in. You'll slowly see the hexagon turning into a cube. And that is the same cube that you saw on the Israeli flag. So when you look at that now, what do you have now? Now you have the circle and the square representing time and space, and it represents the planet Saturn. Okay? Saturn and Satan are the same dude. They both represent the same thing. Whether he's a real entity or he's not, it's what they worship, it's what they believe. So here we have the circle and the square. Sometimes they'll do it the other way around. They'll put a little circle in a square, but it's still the circle and the square. It means time and space, material versus spiritual, but it's the same stuff. When are you going to wake up? That allowed this shit to happen. Because you wanted to watch American Idol and you thought you could dance.
Motives and thoughts. Rotating bodies, confusion of sound. Negative imagery holding us down. Social delusion, clearly constructed. Human condition, morals corrupted. Trapped in reaction, lawlessness, war. Dissatisfaction from bowels to core. Devil's technology, strategy 4. Human mythologies, urban folklore. Sicker psychology, counterfeit cure. Wicked theology, robbing the poor. Scheme demonology, mislead the pure. Stricter strategically studying war. Light shone in darkness, image exposed. Few can see through the new emperor's clothes. Lustful, this hustle turns humans to hoes. When the blind lead the blind, just more trouble and woes. It's the mind that they chose, it's designed to stay closed. Standards of jokers, court jester logic. Cyclic and cosmic from schoolyard to college. Primitive man in his civilized knowledge. System collapsing, he still won't acknowledge. God is the savior, studies behavior, trying to fix the mixed mind that he gave you. Stiff-necked scholars on prescription meds, wishing their problems was all in their heads. Moral dilemma, pride at the root, misguided from youth, heart divided from truth. Egyptians and Grecians, spiritually dead, empirically led by the good gods in their heads. Motives and thoughts.
In the book, Masonic and Occult Symbols Illustrated, we find this quote from Masonic author Charles G. Berger, who says that symbols came to have two meanings, the esoteric and the exoteric. The esoteric meaning was the true or original meaning, understood only by a few and closely guarded by them. The exoteric meaning was the invented or modified explanation intended for the many.
As with all secret societies, you have levels, and if you're on the lower levels, you don't even know they're upper levels. They don't even tell you. Right. You bump into it by accident, or someone comes along. Now, in Scottish Rite, that's something different, because they know that there's a. But before then, in basically secret societies, let's go to ancient Egypt. To the ancient Egyptians, the priest would tell the serfs, the guys that tilled the land, they would say, the sun is God, okay? And so they accepted that very low-level interpretation, all physical. That's not what the priests believed. What the priests believed, there was a second level. The priests believed that, nope, the physical sun is not the supreme being, it's the spirit which flows through the physical sun that is the supreme deity. However, there was another level, and the priests didn't even know it. It's those that were involved and elevated to if I would have told you this 15 years ago, I might have gotten shot. But this is now, I'm so glad now that this is easy to talk about. The third level, which was a higher level of understanding, said, nope, it's not, that's not the sun is not the supreme deity. Nope, yes, spiritual energies come through the sun, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the star Sirius.
The dog star.
The dog star, because the dog star was everything to the ancient Egyptians.
The rising of Sirius, which is an astronomical phenomenon, was New Year's Day for the Egyptians. Their calendar, their sacred calendar, was based entirely upon the star Sirius, not on the sun and the moon.
Thing about all Freemasonry is symbolism is ultimately very important.
Light of the dog star, Sirius, which some believe holds a more sinister implication.
This dog star also has relations to the idea of modern-day ceremonial magic and modern-day masonry.
This was especially true for 20th century occultist and Freemason Aleister Crowley, who openly practiced ceremonial magic and was a member of a secret order called the Order of the Silver Star. The Silver Star was a reference to Sirius. As Robert Balville writes, in many esoteric traditions, the return of the capstone of the Great Pyramid will signal the return of the Great Initiate, which, according to many prophecies, signifies the return of the Christ.
All right, back at Archaea, we're talking about Hacktivist, which was a comic created by Alyssa Milano, I believe, and then she handpicked some writers and colorists. This is Jackson, Colin, and then Ian colored it. What is the idea behind Hacktivist?
So Alyssa came up with the idea, I think, initially because of a closeness with Jack Dorsey, who's the founder of Twitter and Square. And kind of the crazy thing about her concept behind Jack was he's the guy who's changing the world by day through these really like progressive corporations, these progressive ideas. What if he was going back at the end of the night and changing the world through like Anonymous?
Get hard, let the stress go. Yeah. Don't get it twisted. This rap is mine, motherfucker. Game. What you heard is what you hearing It's what you hearing, listen. It's what you hearing, listen. It's what you hearing, listen. X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out and stainless steel. Go hard getting busy with it. But I got such a good heart that I make the mother wonder if you did it. Damn right, and I do it again. Cause I am light, so I got to win. Break bread with the enemy. No matter how many cats I break bread with, I'll break who you sending me. You motherfucker never wanted nothing but your life saved. That's on a light day, I'm getting down. Like it said freeze, but won't be the one ending up on his knees. Please, if the only thing you can't steal was came out to play, stay out my way. Mother, first we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. He ain't never gave nothing to me, but every time I turn around, cats got their hands out, wanting something from it. I ain't got it, so you can't get it. Let's leave it at that, cause I ain't with it. Hit it with full strength, I'm a jail, so I face the world like a girl in the bullpen. You against me, me against you. Whatever, whenever you gon' do, I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing. Only that you know who can chill, come back and get the streets open. I've been doing this for 19 years. Wanna fight me, fight these tears. I put in work and it's all for the kids. But these cats done forgot what work is. They don't know who we be looking, but they don't know who they see. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. Hey yo, where am I? Dad, I know I got them down in the greens, give them love and they give it back. Joke too much for too long. Don't give up, you're too strong. Love to the wild, wild hunters. Shout out to that done it. And it ain't even about the dough. It's about getting down for what you stand for, yo. For real. We gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. Come on. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. Come on. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. First we gonna rock, then we gonna roll, then we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya. X gon' give it to ya, he gon' give it to ya.
Because in 2017, we had the first eclipse which went in the path August 21st, 2017, went through Makanda, Illinois, as you can see here on your screen. Let's keep watching here. See if the sound comes on. So here's Makanda, Illinois, and I talked about how this place was called the Star of Egypt. It says right here, it's known as the Star of Egypt. So the center of the star of the crossing eclipses is known as the Star of Egypt. If it can't get any more clear than that, Carbondale, Illinois. Carbon is the graphene. This is all about a ritual of marking people with the graphene. So, as you can see, it's already pretty much happened. Let's keep watching here. Now, there's some kind of vulture festival that occurs here. For those of you that live in that area, the vultures, which of course are signs of the dead, right? Here it talks a little bit about the community of Makanda. And there was February 7th, 1888 was when it was incorporated. So there's your 888s. We've also talked about how Wakanda fits into this in the Wakanda Forever decodes that we did. Now, there was like an Egyptian type slave component to all this, where black people were enslaved, just like the ancient Hebrews were. Look at this. This is the whole story of the origin of Little Egypt. There were actually settlements in the 1830s. The whole grain thing and saving for the famine, all of this came into play here. There were tracts of land named Cairo. It says right here, the town of Cairo still stands on the peninsula where the Ohio River joins the Mississippi. There were other settlements given names with Egyptian or Greek Middle Eastern origins, and they list them here. Southern Illinois University Seleucus Sports Team, Metropolis, Thebes, Dongola, Palestine, Lebanon, New Athens, Sparta, and Karnak. These were all Egyptian cities, ancient Egyptian cities that were named in Little Egypt, right where these eclipses are crossing. Wow. I'm getting chills just reviewing this older video, because it's all becoming very real, isn't it? We never left Egypt, did we? Now I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind. Literally, our presidents are Egyptian pharaohs, all of them. Now here's Cairo, and they talk about the lynchings that happened there, race relations, slavery, all this stuff. So it's a little bit of the history on how this kind of overlaid the happenings of what happened in ancient Egypt, with Egypt enslaving God's people. So now you understand the history of Markanda, the center of these two eclipses crossing, the Star of Egypt. And now you understand why all of this racial hatred is now on center stage in America. And as God said, there is nothing new under the sun. Markanda, Cairo, Illinois, hiding in plain sight. And when you use your critical thinking, you begin to understand the truth about the world we live in. America is Egypt. The World Trade Center laid out like the Belt of Orion, like the three pyramids, the Twin Towers forming two of the pyramids, and the new World Trade Freedom Tower forming the third pyramid. And now we see the truth, that the Nile Delta, as you see here, superimposed on the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, shows us the Nile Delta. This is unbelievable, because when you zoom in, Cairo is where it ought to be. Cairo, Illinois, Memphis, Tennessee is where it ought to be. And right above Cairo, you see Markanda, which is where the two eclipses will cross, at the center of the Nile Delta, the Star of Egypt. You can't make this up. You can't stretch this. There you see the Ohio rivers and Mississippi River forming the boundaries of the Delta, almost perfectly superimposed.
Yeah. Don't get it twisted. This rap is mine.
NASA and Montana State University are ready to send loads of bacteria into the stratosphere, but don't worry, it's all for science. Teams across the U.S. will release about 100 balloons during the August 21st total solar eclipse. They'll float around 85,000 feet in the air, and each balloon will have cameras for video and photos, as well as a tracker. Some of those balloons will also carry samples of a highly resistant bacteria. NASA scientists want to see how it reacts to Mars-like conditions. The upper part of Earth's stratosphere has conditions very similar to Mars's atmosphere at the surface. The air is thin and the environment is cold and full of radiation. During the eclipse, the conditions will become even more like Mars. The experiment aims to test the limits of living things on Earth. Eventually, the balloons will pop and devices will send the data and bacteria down to the ground. NASA will compare the stratosphere bacteria with samples left on Earth to see what changed. Researchers say they hope to learn a lot from this balloon experiment, and bonus, the cameras on board will live stream the eclipse on the internet for millions to watch.
This is from Death Magnetic, one of the singles released 2008 on the date of the eclipse. Not playing the audio. Spores are collected. Revival organism causes a zombie apocalypse. Spores under their control. And it's time for the U.S. to basically pay the piper, because we have waged war around the world. Russia makes samples. They put them up in a balloon across the United States. Here you see the trajectory, very similar to the eclipse path that we showed you guys. American forces spot the craft, but the altitude is unreachable. What were these balloons at 80,000 feet that NASA dropped? This is from 2008, you guys. Follows the jet stream, windborne. There's your strain, zombie apocalypse, everything we've been talking about. This is right out of the FX series, The Strain. And on the actual day of the eclipse, they showed us that the master is here.
What is this bioweapon shown here in the video? In the video, there's this creature and they collect the spores that the organism produces, and that's what creates the bioweapon. This bioweapon thus creates a zombie apocalypse. And this zombie apocalypse brings through just all sorts of devastation and, of course, brings in the New World Order. I had to dig to find that word in Russian. It is not readily available on any websites. I found it in the catalog of fossil spores and pollen, and you can see the Russian word down there. I believe it means spore, but I don't speak Russian. There's images of it on all sorts of different types of spores, and it comes from fossils. As you can see, this fossilized spores is dust from the earth. This is important. In the Old Testament, there is a test for the adulterous bride. Now remember that the church, those who believe in Yeshua Jesus, are referred to as the bride of Christ. So this test for the adulterous bride is a shadow picture of all sorts of things that will unfold over time. Now let's look at the test for the adulterous bride. The priest shall take holy water in an earthenware vessel and take some of the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle and put it in the water. So this test for the adulterous bride involves dust from the floor of the tabernacle. The full test for the adulterous bride can be found in Numbers 5, but I'm just going to give you the gist of it. So she's made to drink this bitter water, and if she has defiled herself and broken faith with her husband, now remember, this is a shadow picture. Marriage is a shadow picture of our relationship to Yeshua. So Yeshua is our husband, the church is the bride of Christ, okay? So if the bride has been unfaithful to her husband, the curse shall come upon her, and it will cause her thigh to rot, her womb to swell, and she will have bitter pain, and she will become a curse among her people. If the woman has not defiled herself, and she is clean, then she shall be free, and she shall conceive children. Conceiving children is a picture of her being incredibly fruitful.
Now, where did Metallica get this idea that balloons would be dropped over the United States with poison in them and disease? Well, they probably got the idea from the vengeance balloons that the Japanese were planning on launching over the Pacific Northwest, in which a person in Bly, Oregon, several people died because one of these exploded. They had bombs and disease. The first balloons were launched in 1944. They began landing over the United States. This is real. This is history. It was called Operation Cherry Blossom. 9/22/1945 was the scheduled date. Unit 31 was a specialized Japanese military that specialized in biological and chemical warfare. And their plan was to drop bubonic plague, cholera, and smallpox. This 731 group also did live human dissections. This is all in Wikipedia. 6 Americans were killed near Bly, Oregon. And this is unbelievable because this is real. Because we dropped the nuclear bomb, they were never able to launch these. It was scheduled to launch September 22nd, but was not realized because of the surrender of Japan in August. So yes, Japan did plot to unleash a plague on the United States with balloons. Now, here are the balloons. They look much like the balloons that NASA launched over the United States during the eclipse. As we just saw Metallica, they showed the exact same scenario, except Russia was the one launching the bombs. The plan of the Japanese was to create forest fires with the bombs and also unleash disease into the United States. Some of these were filled with fleas that were infected with bubonic plague.
Allegedly, folks.
On the
Allegedly.
233rd day of the year, and these balloons from Japan were 33 feet in diameter, and their cargo was a 33-pound anti-personnel fragmentation bomb. They plan on launching these off of submarines that reached off of our coast, and then they were going to load them up with disease and launch these balloons, have them be carried by the jet stream over the United States. Here are the balloons here. Here's a map of where many of these balloons fell. Some reached all the way to Detroit. Look at this bacteria that they launched. 20 locations in 50 balloons over the United States during the eclipse. And I don't believe there's any way else to cut this, you guys. This is the strain. Here's the study, the only study I could find on this bacterium called Bacillus xerothermodurans. Now, I studied this very carefully because I did not want to make a mistake and scare people needlessly. This is it. This is the man that discovered it, and he mysteriously died, they said, after a serious illness last year. Now they are launching, or they launched, his bacterium that he discovered, Bacillus xerothermodurans, into the atmosphere. So I pulled up this study, and what they're saying about this bacteria is that they really don't understand this bacteria. And it says here that the biochemical tests, exterior and interior spore morphology, and growth characteristics of this organism do not fit those of any of the presently described species of bacteria. Consequently, we regard this organism as belonging to a new species, for which we propose the name Bacillus xerothermodurans. This bacteria is highly resistant to dry heat, which is why they are saying they're studying it. Their cover story is they wanted to launch it with low ultraviolet radiation exposure. That's why they launched it during the eclipse. As you can see, they launched it directly in the path of the eclipse. And they're saying that the whole thing was to recreate the conditions on Mars. Thinner air, ultraviolet radiation in the stratosphere comparable to those on the surface of Mars. During the eclipse, the moon will block some UV rays, making the environment in our stratosphere even more similar to the Martian stratosphere. That is the cover story. This is the bacteria. They're putting it on these aluminum plates, launch it up in the atmosphere, and this is what they're saying they're doing. They're saying it's harmless, but as I just read to you in this study, they don't really know what this thing is. They cooked it at very high heat. I don't believe they were able to kill it. This is what it looks like. It has 9 layers. One of them, they describe it as being out of the ordinary. This is almost like an alien spore. Typical surface morphology and detail. The surface honeycomb pattern of the polygonal depression surrounded by straight ridges is similar to that found in other reports and literature. In his ultrastructure study, large spore found the sectioning revealed irregular, thick outer spore coat composed of globular subunits and an unusual laminated inner spore coat, containing up to 9 distinct layers, as shown in Figure 2, which is here. 9 layers in this thing. It may be speculated that these spore coats may serve as barriers to moisture loss during heating, and thereby account for the extreme resistance to dry heat. This is how they're saying that it is resistant to dry heat. And in this strange occurrence, in me trying to research this Paenobacillus xerothermidurans, I came to California State University, Los Angeles, and did a search, and there was a person by the name of Jessica Cisneros who did a speech specifically about the Paenobacillus in 2012. I got a warning, not a secure site. They wouldn't let me into the site. And then when I tried to research this woman's name, I got a warning, not a secure site. They wouldn't let me into the site. And then when I tried to research this woman's name, it came up under some act that said she had the protection of scrubbing her name from Google searches. There's something going on here, and I need your guys' help. Biological tests and morphology of this bacillus fit no described species, according to studies. And when CNN does pieces like this, the big one is coming, and it's going to be a flu pandemic. This was in April of this year. When they do stories like this, and they talk about the 1918 pandemic that killed 50 million people worldwide, and they say our only hope is flu vaccines, we know this is pre-programming us for something else.
A disturbing number of references to an occultation preceding an apocalypse.
We had an eclipse a few weeks ago.
No, I think this refers to something else, something that has not yet happened. In the 1300s, the bubonic plague killed over 20% of the humans on the globe. It took 300 years to restore the world's population. Later, the Spanish flu infected more than half the people on Earth and killed 75 million before we were able to recover.
The last time that an eclipse crossed the contiguous United States was 99 years ago, in 1918, during the flu pandemic. Now, this isn't to create any type of fear. This is just to help you understand what all this means when you see it foreshadowed in these TV shows and films. And we know they did it before 9/11, and we know they're going to do it again before whatever it is that they do next. This is Haskell County, which falls exactly in the path of totality in Kansas, right here. The eclipse of 1918. And Haskell County was where the flu outbreak was first observed in 1918 of January, which was several months before the eclipse. But as you can see, the eclipse would pass right over Haskell County in its totality. And it says here, March 4th, the cook reported him sick at Fort Riley. By noon, March 11th, over 100 soldiers were in the hospital. Within days, 522 men at the camp had reported sick. And by March 11th, it had reached Queens, New York. Even though the flu of 1918 started in Kansas, only half of 1% of Americans died from the flu, whereas 50 million people died worldwide that year. It says 500,000 Americans died. At that time, there were 100 million people living in the United States, and so that's half of 1% that died from the flu. So what can you do? Well, you can be prepared, and your heart and your spirituality can be prepared as well. This isn't about the physical as much as it is the spiritual.
It states that this event must take place during an occultation.
We just had an eclipse. When's the next one? Yeah, I looked it up. For New York City, it's April 8th, 2024.
Start of game. What?
April 8th, 2024.
Start of game. What you heard is what you hearing. What you hearing.
You know what's crazy is her bringing up this DMX and 99 without possibly even knowing the 99 connection with DMX that I brought up earlier with Lil Nas X birthday, born in 99, him dying, DMX dying on Lil Nas X's birthday. His name, Earl Simmons, equals 99. 9 months, 9 days later, Betty White dies in 99. And of course, DMX and Lil Nas X all on the same day as Prince Philip, dying in 99 on the 99th day of the year, on and on and on and on and on. Queen Elizabeth dying 9 months, 9 days after Betty White dying at 99. So yeah. Shout out to Perilous X Prep.
To a fallen angel named Osiris.
The Americans of 1%.
What you heard is what you hearing.
We just had an eclipse. When's the next one? Yeah, I looked it up. For New York City, it's April 8th, 2024.
Start of game. What you heard is what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen, it's what you hearing. Listen, it's what you hearing. Listen. X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real. With the non-stop pop out and stainless steel. Go hard getting busy with it. But I got such a good heart that I make the mother wonder if you did it. Damn right, and I do it again. Cause I am light, so I got to win.
All right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Much love, peace, prosperity, and pineal power, and I'll see y'all on the next one. And y'all best believe that.